Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk D&D. This episode is going to be a little less about D&D itself and a little more about some recent events and what that's probably going to mean for my channel going forward. Uh, let's start with a few things. Trans people have a right to exist. LGBTQ people have a right to exist. They have the right to do with their bodies what they want. They have the right to love who they love. Those are blanket statements. If you don't believe those, there's the door. You are welcome to leave. You can turn off the video. You're free now. But I think for the vast majority of people in the world, these are things that we care about because they are people we care about. Uh, and the reason I bring this up is because I have the full belief that D&D should be for everyone. Whenever I run a table, whenever I talk about D&D, it's always with the premise that the only thing that makes it to where you can't be at that table is if you're trying to tell other people they can't be at that table. Now, the reason I bring this up is because recently Elon Musk, and I know you're all pulling off your headphones now because you don't care what Elon Musk says, and I'm with you on that one, but this one hits a little close to home because he says he wants to buy Hasbro specifically for D&D. Now, there's a lot of reasons why I think this is a bad idea. But the whole reason I bring it up is because another gentleman on YouTube named Esper the Bard, and I'm just going to say right now, don't harass Esper the Bard. Okay? I'm not trying to pick a fight with him. I'm bringing this up because what he said got me thinking about what I do. Okay? So it should go without saying not to harass people, but please, don't harass people. But the reason I bring this up is because he made an open letter video to Elon Musk, basically saying, whatever Elon Musk ends up doing, whether it's buying Hasbro for D&D or doing his own TTRPG, he wants to be a part of it. And he made this, rather grand appeal to the history of storytelling. And in that respect, I do agree with Esper the Bard. Storytelling is one of the oldest things humans have done since the time that we could actually utter and form thoughts and words and sentences. But I think where he goes wrong is the fact that Elon Musk is not a good person. He's not a good person who you want in control of something like Dungeons and Dragons. We've seen what he has done with Twitter and how that turned out. But he is a known transphobe. He has disowned his transgender daughter. He allies himself with people who are themselves transphobes or they're bigots in one form or another, whether that's racial bigotry or bigotry against people's sexual orientation. And he is not someone I want in control of something that is essentially a cultural touchstone. And the reason I want to address this is because I think this is something that we kind of need to address now rather than later. It's one of those things where, we all made fun of Elon Musk when he tried to back out of buying Twitter, and, dang, I kind of wish they had just let him back out of buying Twitter now. But here's my thing. Is in some respects, this isn't going to be a thing that kills D&D in the strictest sense. It's not like D&D is going to stop getting made. Even to this day, there are people who play older editions, whether it's 3.5 or 2 or even 1. And even after Elon Musk buys Twitter, it's not going to change the fact that people have their physical copies of books. They can still play at their tables, with their rule sets. And even in terms of a TTRPG, you can't really own a rule set in the traditional sense. And even if he makes like a completely different rule set and says this is D&D now, we can always just not buy it, which is frankly where I'm at, but we'll get to that in a bit. But here's my thing, is Elon Musk is someone who does things to inflate his own ego and line his own pockets. And I'm not going to pretend like Hasbro is innocent of that either. Like, they're a business. Their whole thing is to line their own pockets. And we've seen that backfire on them on more than a couple occasions. So it's things like the open game license or the Creative Commons. Hasbro a while back decided, hey, we're going to try and restrict this, and we're going to try and get people to pay us in order to make like third-party content, like third-party books that use the D&D 5e rule set but are their own unique creative thing, or content like like live plays, and obviously that blew up in their face. It blew up in their face because the community pushed back on it and said, no, this is stupid, we're not giving you any money. But there was some serious concern at the time that people were going to have to stop doing D&D content, because otherwise it was going to mean they would have to shell out money to Wizards of the Coast, money that they don't necessarily have, because they are not a giant publisher the way Wizards of the Coast is, or Hasbro is. And the thing is like that ended up working out, and Wizards of the Coast backed down, and they actually gave a very generous OGL and Open Creative Commons. But here's the thing: is like Elon Musk isn't going to care, if we don't like it. If anything, that'll just make him want to do it more. I think some people would like to think that we're going to be immune because like the Creative Commons license says like in perpetuity, as long as proper credit is given to Wizards of the Coast, and that's fine. But what happens when Elon Musk says, well, we're officially disbanding Wizards of the Coast, we're folding it into this new company, we're going to call it D&D X, it's now its own thing, here's our new rule set, and we're going to have like this really restrictive OGL license, and we're not going to have any Creative Commons, or we're going to have this really restrictive Creative Commons, and I'm going to have people pay me money for it. And again, he did that with Twitter. He had people paying for blue check marks to verify their profiles, and he had people paying subscriptions. So of course, like, if he's able to do it, he's going to do it. And believe me, there's still ways that he can screw over the D&D community like that. So again, even if he buys D&D, it's not going to mean that people stop playing D&D. It's going to mean that D&D is probably going to go into hibernation for a good long while, because people aren't going to pay. But like honestly, like with this, if Elon Musk came to me and said, hey, you're making D&D content, we want a cut of the money, I'm going to tell them, well, no, screw you, I'm just going to stop making D&D content. So what this comes to is, what does this mean for the future of my channel, and why am I doing this? Why am I making this video? I've made this video like 4 times now, and each time I have, wanted to add something that I forgot, or change something, or I've learned something that maybe change my perspective a little bit, but still, gives me some concern, like the Creative Commons license. So my thing is that if Elon Musk buys D&D, I'm not going to buy a single product that he puts out for D&D, or anything for that matter. It's going to mean, no Magic the Gathering, no Dungeons and Dragons. Sadly, because it's Hasbro, that's also going to mean, no Transformers stuff. I mean, I'm not a My Little Pony fan or anything, but some people are. So, any content that's from Hasbro, I'm just not going to put out in any way, shape, or form. And I think that's just going to be the way to go, because I don't want to even give tertiary advertisement to someone who is again, frankly, a bigot. There's no other way to put it. Elon Musk is not a good person. I do not want to give him money. I do not want to inadvertently or indirectly advertise for him. Even if he doesn't charge me for D&D content, if he owns it, I don't want to advertise for his D&D stuff. I'm not going to buy his D&D stuff and say, hey, this book is really great, even if it is mechanically a good book. So that's where I'm at, and that's why I've made this video. Because I do believe D&D is for everyone. And what I see in the future for D&D, if Elon Musk buys it, is a D&D that is for Elon and for people who worship Elon. And I am not one of those people. Some people may have a more optimistic outlook. Some people may have more insider experience as to how the corporate side of D&D works. And that's great. I don't have that, and I'm not going to pretend like I have that, and I'm not going to pretend like I spent every waking moment trying to learn the ins and outs of something corporate, because D&D is about having fun in a game, not about having to learn the corporate politics of it. So that's where I'm at, and I'm going to do little open sections of my own, because I think it is important to address certain things. Uh, like another thing people have said to me, it's like, oh, well, Hasbro's trying to go all digital anyway. It's like, well, okay, but you realize that actually kind of makes it worse. Like, especially with digital stuff, like, it's like the Bethesda horse armor thing. That's what Elon's going to do, is D&D is going to become the Bethesda horse armor. It's going to be every single subclass is going to have, be digital behind a paywall. Every single campaign module is going to be digital behind a paywall. Every single race is going to be digital behind a paywall, even if it's basically just the same as another race, but this one thing was changed. I can guarantee, like, mark my word, I guarantee you, if he buys D&D, that's what it's going to be like. Because, again, we've seen this with Twitter. So here are my open letters to, various people. The first thing I want to do is address Hasbro. And I'm going to say, Hasbro, as much as a lot of people have some very valid bones to pick with you, don't sell to Elon Musk. Just don't. You would be doing the current purchasers of your product a grave disservice if you were to do so. Whether you go all digital in the future, whether you stay physical in the future, really, it's a bare bones thing. You have made a product that appeals to a wide audience, and you don't want to, if you care about that product, you're not going to want to sell it to someone who has a very narrow view of his audience. And that's Elon Musk to a T. Now, to Elon Musk, and I am loath to address you in any way, shape, or form, but, times mean what they are, I'm going to say this. If you feel the need to get into the TTRPG making business, then I would say make your own thing. Don't buy Hasbro and, slap your own label on it. Everyone who has made a TTRPG, since the start of D&D itself, back in the first edition, has stood on the shoulders of giants. And they have all done very creative things with the inspiration from, but without directly stealing from D&D. People have made really creative TTRPG systems. They've made really creative TTRPG settings. Even ones like the Fallout TTRPG, like it's based on an IP, but at the same time, I actually really like the system. As another example from Hasbro, their Power Rangers TTRPG, I find their system very ingenious. But that said, I think if you are even a fraction of as smart as you believe you are, then you should be able to make your own thing and leave D&D alone. My position is that if you buy D&D, I think it proves to me that you are not willing to get there on your own steam, that you are not capable of getting there on your own steam, and that you just want an easy way to, reach and manipulate people into your way of thinking, which I'm not going to buy into that. Like I said, if you buy D&D, I am just going to not buy D&D things. Like, even if it's online subscriptions to D&D Beyond. If you say, hey, you know what, the only place you can play D&D online now is D&D Beyond, and we're not going to let Roll20 have any of the rule sets, you know what? Fine, I just won't play D&D. There's Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I don't know how to play it, but I can learn. I've learned other TTRPG systems before. So that is my address to Elon Musk, is do your own thing. Prove, if you really believe you can make a good system, one that can rival D&D, prove it. Prove it without just co-opting D&D as a whole. My next one goes out to any of the content creators. I don't know if any of you have the same concerns that I do. I certainly hope you do, because I firmly believe that most people who play D&D have this sense of community and have my same attitude of the table is where all people should feel like they belong. And my address to these people, whether it's Just to name a few: Dungeon Dudes, Ginny D, Pointy Hat, Crispy's Tavern. Again, just to name a few. There's so many out there. Um, Again, I see the future, and I see a future where Elon Musk tries to screw us over. Probably you guys more, because you guys do things like make books, whereas I just, make little dinky characters based on the rule set. So I am of the opinion that this is something that we need to unite on and push back against now, rather than having our silence be mistaken for consent. Again, my position is that if Elon Musk buys D&D, I'm not going to make D&D content. I don't know if that is an option for some of you. I know some of you, do TTRPGs beyond D&D, even if D&D is still your bread and butter. But that is what I would encourage you to do, and I'd be happy to hear feedback on this, whether you disagree with me or whether you think another course of action would be more appropriate. But I think we need to unite and say we're not going to engage in a future with D&D that's run by a bigot. And then that's where that's at. Again, this isn't so much a let's talk D&D as let's talk about D&D on my channel type thing. But I feel it's something I need to talk about, because it's not a future I want to see. I don't want to see a future where Elon Musk is in control of a cultural touchstone like D&D. And people will go to other TTRPGs. People will play older editions of D&D. That I'm not disputing that in any way, shape, or form. But I'm more concerned with, are we going to let D&D have even a decade of control under someone who doesn't appreciate the community that D&D is based around? Because I'll tell you something, I've never been on Twitter, but I've been on Blue Sky, and I am astounded at how many people there are into D&D, and you know what? A lot of them are trans, a lot of them are LGBTQ, and a lot of them don't like Elon Musk, and I think a lot of them are of the same opinion of me as, they don't want Elon Musk buying their things. Like I mentioned, the other things Hasbro own. Optimus Prime is the person that says freedom is the right of all sentient beings. Do we really want that character in control of being controlled by someone who doesn't actually believe that in any way, shape, or form, and in fact is the very antithesis of it? Because that's where we're at. Neil Gaiman says, fairy tales are the most true, not because they teach us that dragons exist, but because they teach us dragons can be beaten. And I think that's true, and I think Elon is the dragon that needs to be beaten. And I think we need to beat him now while he's a wormling, and not later when he's, the ancient red dragon. So that's where I'm at. Thank you for joining me, and sorry if this was a more somber episode, but it's something I wanted to get off my chest, and it's something I wanted to address, if only so that you guys know what to expect of me. So that, if Elon does buy D&D and I suddenly stop doing roll call, or at least stop doing roll call as it pertains to D&D, then, yeah, that's why. So thank you for joining me, and as always, keep doing what makes you awesome. Thank you very much, and goodbye.